Also Sakurebo, also Sakurebo, also Sakurebo, also Sakurebo, Sakurebo, also Sakurebo, also Bonsakomeyami, also Sakurebo, also Sakurebo, Mesomakumareto, Yanakumareto, Mesomakumareto, Amano, Makumareto, Yakumareto, Mesomakumareto, Makoma pentenya mi wa yeye mo makoma dia yeye menya mi ayeye oh adekwa wo na wo fata oh fata adekwa yeye sawo aya wona wo fata Makes us also rubber for you now, Mete was so romantic, and Quackasaro, so they shine your pneumonia, also Rosacureto, ain't miss on Macoma Rebo, me, Macoma Rebo, Macoma Cambo Maso, Amano, Macoma Reto, Ajuqua Fato, Fata, oh, Biamo,
Good afternoon, cherished viewers. My name is Dennis from MSAP Music, and today I am your host. I know you enjoy this program because today's guest is a very powerful man. Let me say powerful because in the audio industry, he's one of the best that you can find. Okay, so today, not wasting much time, let me add him to the live stream. So we have Mr. Caleb Ashon Katai, who was the guest for last week and the guest for today too. So Mr. Caleb, please say hello to your viewers.
Hi viewers, it's been an amazing time from last week, and I trust this week will be a great time as well. I can't wait for the things we share together and we learn together.
Okay, Mr. Caleb, I heard you have an award in this year's VGM. I beg, tell us about it. Please tell us. Which award did you get?
I think it's an easy answer. That's not true.
Are you sure? Because the best audio engineer, I think you had it too.
I don't.
Okay, fine. Viewers, I will leave it to you. You are going to judge. From the things that you'll be saying today, if he's not the best in Ghana, please tell me that it's not the best in Ghana. You will judge for yourself. I'm not going to judge for anyone. So today we have an interesting topic, and I'm going to introduce the topic right after this commercial break. So please stay tuned. So viewers, welcome back. As I said earlier, I'm your host, Dennis from MSAP Music. And today we have Mr. Caleb Ashon Katai, who seems to be the most powerful sound engineer in Ghana now. But he doesn't want to have it, so let me disclaim, he's not, but he'll prove himself today. So we are starting, and today's topic happens to be the basics in mixing. The basics of mixing in perspective. And this back to sound basics with Dennis from MSAP Music. So we begin by saying success in every mix depends on your thinking and doing things in a consistent, logical order, even if it takes a little time to do so. This will help you avoid confusion and will save you time in the end. And with this, sometimes Caleb can bear with me. If the confusion sets in fact, your prayers are even wrong. Nothing, you can't do anything right. So sometimes, for the confusion part there, I'll leave it to Caleb. Caleb will come and talk about it. So, okay, so what's a mix? So we have here, as a now, a mix is a mono or stereo stream of audio. That's actually a combination of two or more other audio streams. This combination is created by directing these streams down pathways called buses, which will be described fully in the subsequent lessons. So that one too, I know Mr. Caleb will do justice to that, or boss.
Sure, that's it. We can do justice. So just let's do a little reading, and I'm sure we'll come inside. But before that, sorry to cut you. Before that, if you have any questions, please do want to drop them. It's purely a question and answer session, as well as the short presentation we have. Thanks.
Okay. And a mix as a verb is the act of managing and shaping audio, and finally the creating of a mix. Okay, as the noun. So what does a mixer do? You know, before you can mix, you need a mixer board. So what does a mixer do? No matter how big a mixer is or how complex it is, simply it's used for mixing sound. And a boss, Meti. Am I wrong, boss? To me, I would say a mixer is just for mixing sound. An audio mixer is just for mixing sound. So let's say you have 24-channel mixer and I'm having 16-channel mixer. Basically, we all end by mixing something. So let me say from here, it says this means that there is a lot less to learn than you think. So consider this: if you have a 24 mixer, all you have to do is to learn how one channel works. Okay, which is quite true. So with the current mixers that we have, I think for the equalizer, compression session, and those stuff, they just brought one. So you select, then you use, which means just one can do the magic. And boss, today we said questions and answered. So these are my questions I'm asking you. So if you don't answer me, I don't know how we will continue.
That's like, okay. You're solid.
Okay. So Tone says I'm solid, so we continue. Okay, so a mixer is a tool for shaping audio. A mixer is a tool for shaping audio or sound, or more specifically, audio. By audio, we mean a stream of sound, such as musicians' live or recorded performance, a rapper's rap, or music being played in a turntable or CD. So what a mixer does is it receives audio from external sources It allows you to change the audio by adjusting its volume and variety of other characteristics, and lets you run it through the internal and external effects board. Okay, a mixer can also send audio to other devices. So you can have a mixer sending it to your sound card or probably sending it to a PC for live streaming.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think from here, I'll leave it to Mr. Caleb Ashon Katai to continue because he is the main host and he was supposed to do the talking. But he wanted to run away, but we are back. So Mr. Caleb, over to you.
Oh, sure. That's fine. Thank you. I just want to say thank you to Iben, the boss, and thank you to everyone at MSAP for having me last week and this week. It's a great privilege to be on this network. So we're just talking about mixing consoles, talking about mixers. I think you mentioned a couple of things, and it's solid. So mixing has to do with bringing together multiple streams and delivering it as either one stream or multiple streams. Yeah, so it's more like you are bringing in a lot of ingredients, you are cooking them to prepare one wholesome meal. It depends on the destination of the meal, but sometimes the destination will require a mono format, some will require a stereo format, some even require a little higher than that. So it depends on the destination, but the core of mixing is we are mixing separate things from different sources as one. So it has to do with a couple of things. Usually mixing, we're talking about levels, we're talking about dynamic range, we're talking about effects, and we're talking about frequency. So when we add these four things on any console, when you grab hands on these four things on any console, you can achieve a great mix. That's if you understand frequency, if you understand dynamics, that's dynamic ranges and how to manipulate them. If you understand levels, if you understand how to use effects appropriately, it's going to take your mixing to the next level. So that's about mixing. So we combine all these things as a single or multiple stream of audio. And also when we talk about mix, a mix has to do with the now, as you rightly said. So the mix has to do with the final product itself. Then the mixer has to do with the console, that's the machinery doing the work. But sometimes when you say mixer, it's two things. It's either the machine or the person mixing. But it's usually also said that the person mixing is called a mixing engineer. So that has to do with mixing, the mixer, and all that other things. So I think Dennis, I think that's it for mixing mixer. I think all what you said pretty much things I would say again. So not to take too much time, we could continue with the slides. And but if there's any question, please feel free to drop the questions, and we are here to answer the questions as much as we can. So feel free to drop the questions, and would do well to do justice to them as
So
much.
Mr. Caleb, with the questions, is it on any topic or just mixing?
On any topic,
Okay.
any topic audio, yeah. That's that.
Audio.
Or any topic audio engineering.
Okay.
If you are a musician, you are into audio engineering itself. Like anyone, if you love audio, just want to ask any question to clarify and make things like clearer for yourselves. That's solid. That's solid. So, any question on audio engineering, please do well to drop your questions. We are here for you.
Okay, so I think this one is by popular request because last week people were asking this, that. Okay, so now we have the chance. Just drop your question in the comment section box and Mr. Caleb will be here to do justice to it. I know he knows everything about sound, so don't worry, he'll answer you right.
Sure. we just know what we know, just no pressure. We still learn.
Okay, so Mr. Caleb, someone asked a question for you. He says, are you ready? It seems the questions that follows will be very tough. So are you ready, Mr. Caleb, for all the questions?
Yeah, you're ready for today. Today.
Okay.
We can't wait. We are here.
Mr. Caleb, let's continue. So how would you know, like, from the budget that the church, I'm using my church because sometimes they'll give you budgets, buy this, and probably that wouldn't be what you need. So how are you going to combine it? Let's say you need M32 and they gave you money for probably, let me say, an analog board. How are you going to are you going to top up yourself because you need that one to work, or you're just going to buy the one they give you, then you work with it?
For me, I think I've grown over the years to have a simple philosophy when it comes to things like this.
Okay.
We are in the church caring and first to serve the church, and you serve with what is available. That's the first thing. If you feel led to top up to add to the system, why not? You can do that. It happens. It happens. It happens. But my side of the story is what you can afford, go for it. Don't go for something you can't afford, because if you can't afford it, means you can't pay for it. So it's a simple answer because it's straightforward. Can you afford it? What's the budget? And sometimes you need to also to ask yourself, what exactly are you going to use that device or equipment for? Is it something worth what you are pushing inside against what the ministry is bringing in? So it's the budget is it's unfortunate that most of the times when we need to buy equipment, we don't really have the bulk of the cash most of the time. So we have to maybe rely on um, other sources of pulling out some cash, and that's fine. And the good thing about most of the musical shops nowadays is that most of them do the high purchase. So if you think that per accounting, per the strength of the church, you can raise that funds in a given period of time, that's fine to go. But for me, it's pretty much simple. If you can afford it, go for it. If you can afford it, and affording it sometimes is not just about the initial cost. It's about what you want to achieve. That one too is a form of money in a different way. Yeah. So that's what about budget I would say.
Okay. So, Mr. Caleb, I have a question from Elliot Apia. I know you know him.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Look,
He says is there any difference in sound production between analog and digital mixers themselves? Or it depends on the engineer? That's the first question. So please answer that before the second one.
okay. So I think it's a very interesting question because we are in an era that now we're doing a lot of digital stuff. We are scaling from the analog to the digital, and things are becoming a little more interesting. And for me, I always tell people embrace digital. Don't run away. Don't shy from it and say, oh, analog quote unquote sounds better than digital. I always tell people that it's fine. You think analog sounds better than digital, but trust me, there are digital consoles that make more sense when it comes to what you need from an analog mixing console. So with that one, don't restrict yourself to that. But the difference between analog and digital, usually it's the processor. So digital processes based on computer, the analog processes based on the electrical component. So they are more like solid states. So they don't load, they don't buffer, they don't delay, they don't do anything. So they come straight as you give to them. But with the digital, there's a little bit of processing, so you may have a little latency because a computer needs to receive, process, and deliver back the information to you. So with that one, I'll say that they are different in how they work, but as a professional engineer, you should be able to achieve good sound from any system. And when you say good sound from any system, it's very relative. So what I mean by that is that you should be able to achieve good sound from that particular system. Example, there is a system that is, let's say, the maximum it can achieve is, let's say, 30%. You should be able to get all that 30%. As at that time, as a mix engineer, you can't do more than what the device can offer. it's, a, it's something I think we need to understand. You can't do more than the device can offer. And sometimes it's the opposite. We have too many powerful mixing consoles. We have too many powerful systems in our hands, and it sounds like they are not powerful. So in that case, you notice that there's a bridge of gap. So now there's a knowledge gap that the engineer needs to speed up himself so that he makes the best out of those equipment, and it makes the equipment relevant for their price and for what they were designed for. So I don't know whether I answered your question, but I think the difference it's they are different. Definitely they are different, but with getting good sound, I always believe a lot relies on the engineer in question. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. Please, the second question says, are there sound production difference between the mixer manufacturers?
Oh yeah, yeah, there are, but it's something which is very subtle. It's very subtle. There are different. Every manufacturer has a different sound to their name. Yeah, every manufacturer has a different sound. And usually, what happens is that because we are in the era of digital, the good thing is that almost every board can sound like any board. Probably maybe not out of the box, but by processing you can achieve something close to any board. But usually what makes the difference in sound of digital consoles, it's something we call harmonics. So we have the second harmonics, we have the third harmonics. They come together and it happens during the saturation of the preamp. So when the preamp is saturated to a certain point using these harmonics, then you have a colored sound to it. Trust me, if you don't have this coloration in the preamp, every digital console should be sounding the same because digital has to do with zeros and ones. It's computer. What you give it is what you get. You get it. So they do these things to kind of add, we call it character to it. So it's adding the kind of, let's say, the distortion to give a certain kind of sound based on harmonics. You get it. So find every manufacturer has a sound to his or her name.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
So, so
this question is
in,
from me to you.
hello, let me know if that answers it.
Okay, so
We
this
can
question
drop
is
our
from me to
questions
you.
as we run. Thank you, Dennis.
Okay, so this question it says, let's say, which brand would you recommend if you want to do outdoor programs? Because sometimes, I heard
The,
this that you can't
the,
only use a studio board for outdoor events. So when they come to your program and you're using, let's say, a studio board, I don't want to give any brand, a studio board, they will say this one was supposed to be used in studio, but you're even giving it to us as an outdoor board. How best can it sound? So what will you say on that one too?
so like my favorite console when it comes to outdoor.
Yeah.
Okay. That's an interesting question because
Is it
it's,
Avid? Or
it's
someone just said Avid?
Avid is one of the favorite things I've read about, I've heard about, I've interacted maybe from their offline, and it's an interesting console. I've not tried it on a real gig at the moment before, so I can't really tell too much about it. But for the ones I've tried the D Lives, I've tried the I Lives, I've tried the Midas Pros, I've tried the M32s, I've tried the X32s, I've tried the Presoners, I've tried the RCFs, I've tried the Yamahas, that's the
So you've
TF.
tried everything.
Oh, not everything, but majority of what is, let me say, in the mainstream, I've
Okay.
tried them, and the ones I really got excited was the Midas Pro. The Midas Pro itself, I got excited about that because it had the character I was hearing from what everyone kept saying about Midas, and it explained to me why their legacy still like is. Yeah, so I think when it comes to console straight out, Midas for me for what I've tried over the years, it's solid. D Live 2 solid on that. D Live 2 solid on that. But Midas for me, even though the Pro series is quite an old initiative, it's still relevant for today's music. Yeah, so maybe if you want a straight answer, I'll say Midas. But for things I've not tried, I would really love to try the Avid to see what it
Okay.
has to offer. I would love to try the SSL console to see what they also have to offer. And yeah, I'll like to try the Digico as well. Yeah, and the new Yamaha Rivage, I would like to try that too to see how they also to behave and respond in terms of running the show with it. Yeah. Thanks,
Okay.
Ellie.
So, Mr. Caleb, we had a question last week, and I want you to address it today. It was on routing. How best can you do your routing? That was the question. So,
How best can you do routing? Okay, when
yeah.
it comes to routing, it's all these things. It starts with the state of the mind. Yeah, it starts with the state of mind. It's preparation. If you are not prepared, you can't execute well. That's you can't. That one there. There's no two ways about that. If you're not prepared, you can't execute. So when we talk about preparation, for me, my philosophy is prepare from the time you get to know about the event till the time the event is done. Even during the event, you still prepare. you get it. Even sometimes after you are still doing some post preparations, it just happens to you. But preparation is key, and mindset too is key. Mindset, you have to know, okay, how many channels am I doing? What channels are relevant for this event? Let me, if I know that, okay, I need 60 inputs, I know that, okay, I'm routing from these stage boxes into the 60 streams. I know the number of mixed outputs I'm doing, that's for the monitors. If I'm doing monitors, I know the number of streaming outputs I'm doing if I'm doing streaming. I know the number of, let's say, matrices I'm doing for distributing my audio around the room. You get it. So when it comes from there, it starts from what the gig has to offer and how you as a professional wants to send the execution, how far you want to send the execution to. Yeah, so I think it has to do with a couple of mixture of things. Yeah, it has to do with a couple of mixture, and it starts with the state of mind. It's key, and you prepare till the gig is done. So how do you do the routing? With that one, it differs from console to console, but the principle still lies. Set your layout as much as possible similar to every console. So if for example for the Midas Pro like this, if I have my instrument on my left side of the console and maybe the middle side of the console is my VCAs, my groups, and let's say my anything around groups and VCAs and DCAs as well. Then maybe the extreme right will have my matrices, my master buses. You can set up your console that way so that when you're moving to the left side of the console, you know that you're going to attack it from the input source and point of view. When you're in the middle, you know you're going to attack it from the group's point of view. So you need to set it up such that any console, you know your movement, because you see, the human body is very special. The human body records movement. So anytime when I move to the left, I know that my brain knows that, hey, it's this kind of move I'm expecting to do when I move to the left. So when I keep laying out my console in a particular way, example, I lay out my console in a way that I don't really need to read the things written on this channel script. All I need to do is to see the colors. When I see the colors and I know how they are arranged, that alone helps me mix faster because I know that, hey, anytime I see green, it's something which has to do with drums. Anytime I see yellow, it has to do with backing vocals. White, it has to do with lead vocals. Red, bass, that kind of thing. So having a regular way of laying your console out, it's very, very, very vital. Yeah, very, very vital. So
Okay.
I think that will be it for that.
So the
Yeah.
next question is from Oscar.
Okay,
Oscar
that's
wants
nice.
to know.
Oh,
Oscar is giving a scenario. So listen to it. Let's
Yeah.
say I want to send sound to a Zoom meeting and at the same time return the sound from Zoom meeting without having sound looping. That's the sound and the video from the Zoom meeting will be also streamed to Facebook. What is the best solution for this? Okay, but to
wow.
me, Mr. Kali, before you come in, to me, if you have any of our numbers, I prefer this one is more practical. The person has to be with the board before you can show you. But I don't know if Mr. Caleb has a magic that he does on the board with us.
Okay, so we'll try and tackle it from this point of view. I'm tackling it from a point that it should be very, let me say, very professional in explaining it. I may call some terms. I'll try and as much as possible to break things down. But it's this way. You have two separate destinations. So the person on the Zoom meeting, example, like currently what I'm saying is not coming from the speaker I'm hearing from. I'm hearing just Dennis talking. I'm hearing what is happening, but everything minus me is what is coming into me. So how do we achieve that? We have a separate mix going to the Skype, going to the Zoom, going to the Facebook. So Facebook is like, let's say, the full final mix, but I don't listen to the Facebook. I listen to it from the Skype. So in that case, I don't have that feedback looping because what's what bring the feedback is that when you send information and that information comes back to the same input, you have a feedback automatically. And with that one, reducing the sound is not the best way out because you will not end up making it audible enough. So the best way is to have separate mixes by using what we call mix buses, or other terms we call it auxiliary passes, auxiliary mixes. So you could use that one, do a separate mix for the Zoom, do a separate mix for the Facebook. And when you're doing for the Zoom, you do it minus the person at the next side of the Zoom so that the person doesn't hear him or himself and feedback into the system. I hope that was very helpful on that.
Okay. So, Mr. Kali, the next question, it's about the audio day out. The person is asking, what would they get the jam session to watch? Do you have any source of providing to them?
Oh, okay. Oh, it's possible. I think just check my wall. Just check the videos. I think it's still available. Just check
Okay, I
the
think that one, he wants the one that has entered the studio. I know that's what the person is trying to say.
I get you. I get you.
So where can they get that one?
But a live event, purely live, we didn't do any post production. It was 100% live, and we hope you enjoyed like that. But we've not thought of doing a post production to that event. Yeah, we've not thought of doing a post production. But let's see. Let's see. Exciting things coming up. Oscar, I hope it answered the question. Any more questions on audio engineering?
Okay, there is no question there, but I would like you to talk about a channel, because when we're having the slides, I said something that just one channel is for like can be a mixer board. So please talk about the EQ, the compression, which I know you are best at, because most of us are saying that for compression they don't go there. So please help us with the EQ, compression, gain, structure, everything.
Well, this is a tough one. Let me tell you, it's a tough one. But it's a tough one. It's a tough one because explaining these things, I think I would explain what the devices and the processes or them to the processes are. So basically, when we talk about things, when we talk about a channel strip, we're talking about that complete set which has everything for processing within that channel. And talking about duplication of the channel, whatever channel component we have in one channel is usually multiplied by the number of channels the mixer can handle. So, example, the processors we are talking about, maybe EQ as a processor, which is very common on analog consoles. You can find them on analog consoles without too much like stress and like it's on the analog console. But if you're looking at things like maybe external effects, then you're talking about outboard gears like compressors and the likes. That's when we're talking about analog stuff. But back to the channel strip, we have a couple of things there. Let me try and just talk about that a little. We have the gain, which controls the input level of the microphone or the signal coming into that preamp. So the gain is directly controlling the preamp and making sure that whatever information is coming inside is well regulated and is good to go. So let's take the gain as the tap. When you open the tap, a lot of water gushes out. When you close it a little till you close it like very tight, then no water comes. So just look at it this way. If you're having let's say a pipe, or let me say a rubber that can maybe tear or burst, and you tie around the pipe, when you open it moderately and you have the same output as much as the input, you notice that nothing really changes. But let's say your output is very little and your input is way higher, that's the pressure of the pipe is very high. You notice that as time goes on, the pipe has to just burst and it causes a lot of leakages and all. So look at it that way. The gain is controlling the amount of input into the channel. And every good sound will start from gain. Trust me. You can have all the effects and everything. If your gain is not set right, the effect processes will not behave as they are supposed to behave. Yeah, so that's it for the gain. And the next section, mostly on the console, we call it the low cut. That's the high pass filter. The low. So that's usually, as it says, it cuts lows and allows the highest pass. It's very simple, and these things they are very self-explanatory. So it cuts the lows and allows the highest pass. So example, when you have a vocal microphone and you are speaking into the microphone, and there's a lot of pop sound, that's a lot of P's, a lot of B's, a lot of like pop, pop, pop. You're going to see that you don't need that information, and usually that information is in the low end region. Or let's say you're recording a vocalist, and let's say a car is passing by, or let's say an aeroplane is passing by, and the frequency probably are very low that you maybe can't even hear, but you are picking some signals in the microphone. Trust me, you may not hear it, but that signal can be triggering the processor itself. So the best way to go about that is to cut what you don't need from the signal. And I think that's my approach to mixing. The first thing I ask myself, what do I need? What don't I need? Okay, so I can't hear this. Once I can't hear it, I just cut it and say, okay, since I can't hear it, let me just start from where I can hear and make sure that I go up to where I can't hear. Or if I go up to, I realize that, oh, this place too, I can't really hear, then I just cut it aside. So it's like you take away things you can't hear and you work with the things you can only hear. So that would be it for the low cut and high cut processors. We call them filters. Then the next thing usually we come across is the EQ. So the EQ, we have different types of EQ. We have the EQ, we have the graphic EQ, we have the parametric EQ, we have the even the parametric, we have the full band parametric, and we have the semi parametric, which is sometimes known as the sweepable. Yeah, that's what parametric is known as. So parametric EQ, we are talking about an EQ that has variable, what we call variable frequencies. At the same time, you can vary the quality of the EQ. And the quality of the EQ is how big a cut or a boost in frequency is. That's I'm trying to be very simple here. Let's hope we capture this. But as we are talking about this, let's do well to talk about questions here, and we'll do well to do justice to them as far as we can. So EQ, we have different types. We have the fixed band. The fixed band is usually the ones we find either in cars or home theaters. We call it the treble and the bass. It's either boosting or cutting a particular frequency at a particular property. So you can't really variate those properties. But with the semi-parametric, you can variate things like the frequency. With the full band parametric, you can variate the frequency as well as the quality of it. You get it. Yeah. So that's it for the EQ. Then I think the I think the EQ, I didn't talk about the graphic. The graphic has to do with more like corrective EQ for systems. Most of the time, that's what it's used for. Even though it has its pros and cons, it has the place it excels and the place it doesn't really excel too much. But the mindset of that is that also too has fixed bands, but this time the bands are multiple. So it's a bit of a narrow Q, which means it has a high quality, which it's very specific to the kind of frequencies, either increasing or boosting. It's either decreasing. So the next thing we end up finding under the graphic is the auxiliary sense. So the auxiliary sense usually tells the amount of that channel we are sending to a particular output. So let's say my monitor, stage monitor is on output aux number 1. What will happen is that when I increase the vocal channel aux number 1 as a send into that, it increases the amount of aux number 1 that's entering into the aux number 1 mix bus. You get it. So the mix bus is basically the destination of the mix, where it's going to end up before it hits the speaker or the amplifier. The next thing we're talking about is we call it the pan port. So the pan port has to do with what is directing the signal to go either left or right. If you are using a stereo means to do your mixing, that's going to control it. If you are using more sophisticated means, you're going to have maybe things like rear left, rear right, front left, front right, center. You're going to have the sub. We're talking about things like surround 5.1 kind of panning. So we have different types of panning to that. But the panning usually does, I call it the horizontal side of sound. So the volume will do the vertical side by increasing or decreasing, but the panning does the horizontal. So the horizontal by taking signal to either the left or signal to the right. So that's how it does. That's left or right is for a classic example of stereo. And even with the stereo, we have different types. We call it LCR, that's left, center, and right. And we have the left and right. There are a bit of a difference to that. So in that one, your setup, you're going to have a dedicated speaker, which is taking information on just the center component of your mix. Yeah, so that's with the pan port. And usually after the pan port, you see things like mute. And the mute button is what is what's muting the audio. So if you don't want to hear the audio, you mute it, and it still comes. The audio still comes to the preamp, but it doesn't flow from the channel into any part of the console. It's when you mute it, that's it. It's muted from going out to any destination you would have assigned it to us at that time. So that's it for that. And we have something called the solo button. So the solo button usually in a mix, let's say you're listening to everything and you want to just separate the let's say the vocal from the other instrument. You want to listen to it like in perspective. It's yeah, in perspective, you are listening to it in the whole mix, but I want to listen to it just in singularity. You're going to solo it and you're going to hear the lead vocal. Maybe you want to troubleshoot what's happening to it or how it's sounding alone with that. Yeah, and the type of solos we have the pre-fader, we have the after fader. That's the AFL and the PFL. So we have the pre-fader. AFL stands for after fader listening, and PFL stands for pre-fader listening. So it's basically you are listening to the information that's coming before it hits the fader. So it means that when you want to listen to that, no matter the position of the fader, you are going to hear the same sound um, as you are hearing. But with the after fader listening, it's independent. I mean, it's dependent on the fader level of the channel. So if you solo it, you want to listen to it, you'd have to bring up the fader level, and in some cases, you have to unmute that channel in order to listen to it in your solo bars. Yeah, so that's with some of the. Then we have a not common kind of solo. It's called SIP, solo in place. So solo in place in a big mix, it disrupts the whole mix and it just takes charge. It's just like doing solo, but in that case, when you do the PFL or the AFL, the front of house, for example, still goes on. You still hear things at front of house. You still hear everything. You don't hear the solo, but in solo in place, you just everything on front of house also too will just shut down, and you just hear what you soloed. And we have places that we use these things to for. So all the kind of solos have their place of expression. Yeah, they all have their place of expression. Then usually after the solo, we see other buttons. We see things like LR, that's the left and right, or you see things like main. So that's basically sending that channel information to the main, left and right, and also to you see things like subgroup 1 to 2, 1, and then 3 to 4. So we are sending the information of that channel to 3 and 4, or 1 and 2, or a combination of them all. And then so these are some of the things we see on the channel strip. And pretty much if you understand one channel strip, you should be able to understand the whole console because it's a multiplication on that. Anything apart from channel strip would have to do with things like routing of the console, would have to do with things like planning your mixing desk as a whole, and which is for me it's key. It's planning your mixing desk is key to having a successful event. And I hope I covered a little of
Okay.
what your
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
Any question, please do also drop it in the comment section.
I've learned a lot. I've learned a
Wow.
lot. Okay, so moving on, there is a question for you from Frederick. He says, concerning the quality on an EQ, which one is the best on a channel? Is it the wide quality or the narrow quality? Talk about the EQ on the left and right bars too.
Okay, that's an interesting question too. So when we talk about quality, there's one thing there's one thing that I always believe in. If you are boosting, it's usually very natural if the boosting is a um, wide boost, means that the quality is a low quality. When you're cutting, it's usually more natural if you're using a narrow Q type. Yeah, for some reason, but these things fine. They are there, but you make sure that anytime you're mixing, you don't lock yourself up in this because it could block a certain move you want to do. Maybe you really are convinced that oh, for this move I need to cut with a wide cue. So it means that you would have to maybe break your theory belief or something. Yeah. But I've noticed that it sounds more at is a high cue and if the boost is a low cue, it sounds more natural. And basically if you're boosting something you want to emphasize I think this one MSAP spoke about that 3 to 4 weeks ago. You want to, if you're boosting something, you're emphasizing on the fundamental tone of that equipment or that instrument. When you're cutting, you are basically removing the things you don't need in that signal. You get it here. But when it comes to the main left and right, you have to know that when you do a wide cut, it's also to affect all the other instruments which are entering into the bass. Example, what is entering into the bass is, um, let's say, vocal, and because of the move you did on the main left and right, the vocal sounds cool. You realize that, let's say you did a cut on, let's say, the lower mids just to maybe make them a bit crisp. Then you notice that you bring in something like your snare or your tom, which are relying on that lower mids to express themselves better. You notice that you can't really get that out of them because already in the main left and right, you've done that cut. You get it. So in doing that too, it's there's a popular saying. I'm sure we've probably heard this 1,000 times. It says that less is more. So with the little you do, it goes a long way of affecting how good the sound comes. Yeah. So I hope that's an answer to the question. But do you want to drop a question? I think we still have some time.
Yeah. We have another question which says, any ideas on a simple way of killing feedbacks when a mic is pointed to a speaker?
Okay, so I'm assuming that the mic is pointed to the speaker, not intentionally, not intentionally. So uh, the hard way. Let me start with the hard way, which I believe is the best way to that type of microphone and the type of monitor you use influence the amount of signal you can get before feedback. Yeah, so you get a stronger signal to noise ratio. At the same time, you get more gain before feedback. So it's a mixture of things. But the hard way, I'll tell you, look at the type of mic you're using. Usually, it's the polar patterns you're talking about. You're talking about maybe it's a cardioid, it's a supercardioid, the hypercardioid. You're talking about maybe it's an omni. If it's an omni, definitely when you put it in front of your monitor, you are likely to have it feeding because omni picks sound all round about it. You get it. So if you are pointing a mic directly to a speaker, probability of it increasing is high. I'm I'm thinking that it is accidental that the person is doing that. So in that case, usually the first option will be to find that frequency which is doing that and maybe bring it down a little so that it can express itself better. But trust me, the best way to go out of it is to make sure you have the right microphone type, the right microphone design with the right properties, and even with the monitor position, it's very crucial. Sometimes tilting the monitor a little off axis can help reduce that feedback loop which is happening, and it ends up giving you a little more information from your microphone. Yeah, but I think there are feedbacks, but for me, I don't believe in anything automatic. Yeah, I don't believe in anything automatic. I believe you have to understand what exactly is happening, and if you can solve from fundamentals, trust me, go for that. Go for that. Go for that.
Okay.
And yes, that's it. So I hope it helps and keep your questions coming in. I don't know how long we have more.
Oh, we have just 18 minutes for us to go.
Wow, that's
18
all.
minutes. So, Mr. Kale, there is another question. When working in a room with a lot of echoes, any ideas on how to EQ the room?
Okay, so first things first. First principles. EQ is not solving the echo situation in the room. What to solve the echo situation is what we call acoustic treatment. You need to treat the room acoustically to make sure it's sounding the way you want it to sound. First things first. Nevertheless, if you're in a room that you realize that it has that echo factor inside, the disadvantage of it is that when you throw more information into the room reacts also to in a different way. So usually the mindset of having the EQ of the room set to a certain way is that you want to reduce the energy of, let's say, you want to reduce the excess energy of other frequencies so that all frequencies can have similar energy to reduce, let's say, blaring of other frequencies to increase audibility. You get it? Yeah. So that increase the audibility of of the audio material. So I would say the EQ is not solving the echo situation, but it's minimizing the effect of playing a signal in that space. You get it. The best way to solve it, first principles, tune your room with acoustics. So you need to hire a professional musician to come and analyze your room and see what exactly you need, what materials you need, and it's a good way to go. And trust me, when you do that, you don't need to do too much, and your room already sounds great. I mixed in a few rooms, and it wasn't too much I'd end up doing, and I realized that the room was a big factor. You just do a little low cut, high cut, and here and there. Trust me, it's good. If you have a good PA and good system work done on a PA, it's solid. Yeah, it's solid. So I'll say ideas on how to use EQ the room is basically when you listen and you realize that oh there's too much information in maybe the low mix, you just take it out. And there are a few software that help us to do that. For me, the one I use is the Smart. Yeah, it's the Smart, so it helps you to analyze. And basically, what it's doing is doing something called real-time analysis. And real-time analysis, you can even get a simple app on your phone to help you to achieve that to a better degree than not doing it at all. Yeah, but with the Smart, what I like about it is that it helps me to do a little more deep things like um, I can check the coherency of both the tops and the stuff and make sure that they are in good alignment and they have good phase response and everything is sounding as one system and not separate systems. Yeah, so that helps me for that. So that's the Smart I use for a little system like. But as time goes on, I always believe you need to also to use your ear. You don't say, okay, I'm using Smart, so you've closed your ears and Smart is thinking for you. Know the softwares are what I call calculators. So what's a calculator? What you give a calculator is what it gives you. Example, if you are looking for an answer 4 and you put in 3 minus 1, you will not get 4, you get 2 because you put in 3 minus 1 into the calculator. So it's there are tools which are helping us, but they are not the end solution of it. So if you don't know how to analyze it, I always say get someone who understands it more, go for training on it and understand it more and appreciate what you're seeing inside. Especially when it comes to the things like phase and stuff. It's very crucial. Most of us shy from it, but that's one thing that really affects the quality of a system tuning. Yeah.
Okay, so Mr. Caleb, can any phone do the smart analysis? Because I know there is sound difference between Samsung and iPhone. So let's talk about that.
Okay. So okay, so that one yeah, quality different. Yeah, the sound quality different with them. But with these softwares too, some of them are very smart in the sense that they can tell what phone you are using and compensate because every microphone has its calibration that can be done to it. So some of them have calibrated files. Sometimes when you buy them, some of them they are there available for free. When you use them, they give you very close information to what already is existing, what comes the stuff. So that's it. Then it's background.
So,
So
Mr. Caleb,
yeah.
so now talking about the left and right bars, I know most of us are interested in. Do you have any magic that you do to the left and right, or you also send it to the matrix? I sometimes see people sending it to matrix before it comes out through the front of
Okay.
house. So,
Sure. Okay, so I think over the years I've grown a style which seemed to work with the most of what I find myself doing. So the style is simple. The left and right, I keep it clean. I keep the left and right clean.
oh, okay.
But what I do is that I distribute a signal to other places in the system. If perchance I should put something on the main left and right, it is something that I'll be comfortable showing up at every point in the chain. Maybe I just want to add a limiter for that main left and right. The other thing is that where is the destination of the audio material going to? In this era that we do live streaming, we will be doing doubling of things. A lot. We'll be having the room sound, we'll be having the live streaming sound as well. So We will need to manage it such that what is going to the live stream, we can do a little more processing on that, as well as what's in the room, we can do a different processing so that it matches into the room. But in as much as we do that, I believe you can achieve one mix which can relatively translate between the two mediums by having a good level of where your sub level is and your top, that's your full range levels are. You can have a good blend. And what I do as practice is I distribute my main left and right to my matrices and take my have a stereo matrix for my main left and right. Depending on the way I want to deploy it, I keep it as a linked stereo bus, metric bus, and I take it to the processor, which distributes it to the various speakers. In a case that I may not have a processor, maybe I'll have to maybe sacrifice a little more metrics for that activity, and we'll have a separate metrics for the sub energy. So that makes it very controllable. The reason why I do that is I don't want to do a mix in a mix scenario, which will have a mix in a separate mix for the sub before. I would just like to do one mix, and that's it. If it works for you, it's welcome. Like do it. But that's what I do. So the metric uses a lot to distribute my signal.
So from Frederick, you have what accounts for the reduction in level of signal when you link two channels? I mean, he's talking about linking maybe channel 1, channel 2, those stuff.
Okay, I think if you can explain a little more, Frederick, because when you link two signals, it's okay. What happens is when you link two signals, you have a stereo. Let me try and see whether I can catch into your mind. If I'm deviating, just let me know. So what happens is that when you have a stereo signal, it's open, so you don't have too much information only in the center. You have it on both left and right. So in that case, the absolute of that may not end up as what a 1 + 1 would have given you. It will be a little lower than that in terms of meter reading. But in terms of listening to it see it as similar levels. So to explain that, if you sum those two stereos as a mono, you usually have a higher signal than when you leave it in a stereo. Frederick, I think that's what we are talking about, right?
Yeah, so Frederick, please, if your question is not answered, you can come back with the question again. I think it wasn't clear to Mr.
Yeah, that's it. So I think it has to do with that. So when you collapse it as mono, the two as mono, you notice that it gets more energy because there's a theory that says that when you bring the two same signal types together and you add them, they increase by 3 decibels. So that accounts for that. But when it's in stereo, because of the horizontal spread, that 3 decibels is not wholly 3 decibels. It's spread across to the left and right. So it shares on the left and right as well.
Okay, so Mr. Caleb, I think we have 3 minutes. So wrapping up, what will be your final words for we, the young audiophiles coming up?
I'm also young, so...
No. You are not young in the business. We are young in the business.
I'm
Frederick and I know Frederick is young. Ernest is young.
I think Ernest is young.
Yeah, Ernest is young in the business, I beg.
I think you should have a clear head, ready to learn at every time. And my philosophy: learn every day. The day you stop learning, that's the day you start dying. So learn every day. Like learn as much as you can. You don't need to learn what you have at the moment. Sometimes you find yourself at an event and you need to excel at that event. At the moment, imagine you've not learned in your storage. You have to learn and put it in store so that when there's time for recording comes, you just bring it out and you just work your magic. So I would say learn. Like don't get tired of learning because too much learning does not break bones. It just keeps you relevant. So just make sure that you keep learning and keep networking with people. Get to know how someone is doing what he's doing. When you like something about someone, tell the person, "Hey, I like your mix," and don't be hypocritical about it, which happens most of the time, which is unfortunate. But be true to the person. "Hey, Charlie, I like your mix. I think your this tones, check it. Bring this a little down, bring this up," and you should be able to have that conversation so that it facilitates growth. You get it? Yeah. So that's it for it.
So, Mr. Caleb, do you have any avenue that we can also come and learn from you? And will
Okay.
it be at a fee?
Oh, definitely, definitely. You come and learn, and it's like going to school. It's actually school. Yeah,
Okay.
it's
Okay.
actually school. So there are a couple of avenues. I know MSAP Music runs a music school. He does training in audio engineering as well as music general. Yeah, as well. So and I also too run iMix. That's Intimate Mix. We do audio training sessions for us for beginners to advance, and we try and all advance together. So that's it. And it comes with a fee, definitely. But it's nowhere close to what you from after the course, because what you charge, you notice that when you get good at what you are doing, you could pay that in some people could pay that in a gig or less. Yeah.
Okay. So, Mr. Caleb, thank you for showing up today. Like, you've really blessed me. If not for all our cherished viewers, you've really blessed me. Now, I know that your compression, there is a way you go about it to get that feel of it, then those stuffs. So, I'm going to use it for tomorrow's service. I hope
Well,
I will send you the fee so that you can also watch. Then you tell me your comments on our Facebook page. Okay.
oh,
So, please, we are wrapping
that's
up
it.
the show, and I want Mr. Caleb to say a word of prayer for us. I know Caleb deals with
Oh,
gospel and all events, and which we do only gospel events. So, Caleb, please
okay.
say a word of prayer
I
for us.
I do everything. So that's
Okay.
but it's still first principles, kind
Okay.
of spiritual source, and be dedicated to a spiritual source. So for me, it's Jesus Christ, and I don't shy from it, and that's where I get most or all of my inspiration from. Yeah, so that's it. So simple word of prayer. Let's pray. Father Lord, we thank you for this time. We thank you for learning together. We thank you that we've had this medium to propagate wisdom, to propagate knowledge, to propagate understanding, and to communicate with each other. We pray and ask that even as we take this into practice, may it be fruitful and may it yield more fruits, even as we serve our various churches in the name of Jesus. Bless us, Lord, even as we become blessings to people. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
So that's
Okay.
it. Thanks for the opportunity, even wherever you are. Thanks, thanks. It's been a hot seat, but
Oh. So,
thank you for Dennis too. He's handled it, and it's a good time. Thank you for everyone that joined.
so,
So
Mr.
let
Caleb, I
me.
think we have something for you from Richmond. He says your tuition should be free. I don't know if you take his number, then you will
Oh yeah,
arrange the free one with him. But I
yeah.
know this one we
Usually
can't do it for
I
free.
come negotiation. So if it's when you say it's free, I don't. You have to explain how free it is, because free may mean expensive sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah, free may mean expensive, but to a large extent, we try and also to organize events, free events as well. Yeah, example, the Olo Day out we organized in 2020. It was a free event. You could go check it out. Tons of knowledge over there, and it was free. It was free. But we have paid courses which they are certified, so you get certificate for that. So that's maybe the more reason why it has a cost attached to it.
Okay. So next week you'll be having Mr. Kamen Studio. I call
Nice
him
one.
Mr. Kamen Studio. I know you know him
So
too.
that guy,
Yeah,
you,
our daddy. He'll be
he's a
talking next week on the show, and we'll be having the main host to be MSAP, who
nice one.
happens to be the CEO and the sound engineer for MSAP Studios. He'll be the host for next week. So
Nice one.
please, next week, try your best to be with us. I know Mr. Caleb will also join us next week again, because he didn't touch on compression, he didn't finish. So that one, you have to come back. So, cherished viewers, we thank you for watching us today. It has been a very fruitful day, and we've learned a lot. And we will come back next week, same time. Then we are going to be blessed. Thank you. Please enjoy this one too from MSAP Music. It was mixed in 2016.
Also Sakurebo, also Sakurebo, also Sakurebo, also Sakurebo, also Sakurebo, also Sakurebo, also Bonsakomeyami, also Sakurebo, Odimenta, Tente we walk also Sakurebo, Mesoma Kumareto, Yana Kumareto, Mesoma Kumareto, Amano, Makumareto, Yakumareto, Mesoma Kumareto, Makoma Pentenya mi wa ye mo Makoma dia ye menya mi aye oh adekwa wo na wo fata oh fata adekwa ye sawo aye wona wo fata Makes us also rubber for you now, makes it was so romantic, so Quacasauro, so the Shania Pneumonia, also Russell Cureto, ain't miss on Macoma River, Macoma River, Makoma Cambo Mamso, Amano, Makoma Reto, Ajuquan Fato.